What's up, everyone? Tolly with Dirtle bringing you another cEDH discussion. This time around, we're going to be discussing how we could upgrade the decks that we talked about last week, making them, I wouldn't say somewhat better, but playable, as I would say with the current meta.
Yeah, so we're going to take into consideration the decks that we referenced previously, and then how you can keep a similar gameplay but upgrade your play experience at the same time. So, sure, if you will pick on Godo, because if you went with Godo, it's a one-trick pony. It does one thing, does it pretty well, but it still only does that one thing. So if you're wanting to introduce more tutoring, or you're wanting to introduce other colors, or you're wanting to do other things that are available to you inside of Magic, it's a little tough to do in a one-trick pony deck like Godo. So we're going to talk about how you can keep a similar mindset but still expand and still do some of those things that you want to try and do with the same deck or a similar theme.
Yep, because here's the thing. Yes, it could be easy to win and know what you're doing on a one-trick pony, but on the flip side, anyone will know what you plan on doing. Anyone will hold a counter spell to counter your treasonous ogre, or even brass squire, or heck, even Godo itself. So this video is going to teach you how you can upgrade your deck to be able to compete with the current meta. But before we do that, if you're not subscribed already, you could please hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that way you won't miss a video, and follow us on Twitter X. Links will be on the description. Same with our Discord, where our Discord's free for all, where you can join gameplays and ask any questions you may have as far as your decks or any judge questions that you may have, as our judge Introvect is just amazing to have. All right, but let's get started. Speaking with Godo, Durfo, go for it. How would you upgrade Godo?
So, of course, by the time you get through playing Godo 5, 10, 25, 100 times, right, you pretty much have the count to 11 thing down to a science. But part of what draws people into Godo, I find, is the ability to win through combat. So if that's something that is still of interest to you, your focus may be directed towards Najeela of the Blade Blossom. So it's still a combat-centric deck. It still uses combat sometimes to win, but because it's in 5 colors, you have those extra options. You're able to introduce blue for counter spells, black for tutors. You're able to introduce a variety of card draw options. You also can switch it up from worrying about just dealing with red to now you're dealing with all 5 colors. Now, of course, this leap is not exactly for the faint of heart. You're probably going to go through some iterations. You're probably going to have to test it out a little bit more to find your comfort zone. But if you want to win through combat, I feel that going from Godo to Najeela is going to be the biggest change to your game plan, while maintaining some of those themes and some of those items that you still like and are interested in, or that you're picking up from Godo. So getting into it with Najeela, you're going to be expanding out. You can include things like Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact. By the way, Tainted Pact is better. But also, again, like I said, you have counter spells, you have additional card draw ability, Smothering Tithe, if that's the thing you're concerned about. But Najeela, still, her primary function wins through combat by generating additional soldiers. You would introduce additional combat steps, and you literally Oath of Druids, and then I can't remember the additional combat spell that's repeatable. I think it's Aggravated Assault. I apologize to those people in the comments. Don't be mad at me if I was wrong. But the idea is that you're just going to repeat that ad infinitum. You're just going to keep doing that until you mow down the table, right? So it's a very similar principle to what you do with Godo. You've just taken it to that next level by introducing other colors. So you can really up your game quite a bit by shifting gears off of Godo and looking at something like Najeela for your next deck. And here's another thing to consider as well. Godo is 6, Najeela is only 3, and still only requires red mana to cast. Her ability is where she gets her Wooburg, so that's your 5 colors from. And that's where you pay the Wooburg, and you're able to have additional combat steps.
Mine, so it's not going to be 5-color, but it's going to be an upgrade from Plagon. Plagon is Azorius colors, for those who don't know, blue-white. Atraxa Grand Unifier is a great upgrade to Plagon. The best way to abuse Plagon is to bounce it with Splizerkin, Ephemerate, Essence Flux, all those shenanigans. Atraxa, you abuse by bouncing her with Ephemerate, Displacerkin, Essence Flux, etc., etc., etc. Not only are you potentially drawing more cards compared to Plagon because you're looking at the top 10, you could potentially still win even with a 7 CMC commander by like turn 3, turn 4. I think in my last gameplay with Atraxa, I won turn 4. So around there.
I'm pretty sure it was turn 4.
Yeah.
That was that Girl Pod? I'm pretty sure
that was the Girl Pod one, yeah.
Play.
But yeah, you basically do the same thing. You're like digging through it. Your main win con is the Thoracle line. You could also add the Blind Obedience line. You have a Teferi, Time Raveler, Displacerkin, a Mox Amber. Be able to do that with Teferi and Displacerkin. You have infinite mana at that point. With the Blind Obedience out, you just keep using Extort with the infinite mana. And you train everyone. And all in all, my favorite win con lately in 2025 has been, and I don't know why I haven't been playing this in 24, has been like the Food Chain line to get infinite mana just to do a Walking Ballista. So at that point, if they don't have any interaction because the only counter spells they have is for non-creature or for like instants and sorceries, like a Dispel, guess what? Walking Ballista is a creature. Play Walking Ballista for infinite mana for like, let's say 2 trillion mana. So that you have a trillion +1/+1 counters. And then just went and you're good. But all right, moving on now, Durful, how would you now upgrade Krakshima?
So Krark and Sakashima is great at, and I touched on this last time, I believe, is great at teaching you stack and interactions. Your knowledge of the stack coming off of Krark and Sakashima is great taking it into something like Rogsai or taking it into Timna Krom and like we said with Godo and expanding that gameplay. That's the same thing that you're doing. You're introducing black with Rogsai. It is entirely different play patterns. It is, but like I said, it's your knowledge of the stack and knowing where and when to interact. Now, it also does require strong mulligan mastery. Like this is introducing other aspects of the gameplay where you've really got to know, your deck, and you've got to know what to be on the lookout for, what play patterns you want to do, what cards that you should be going for. So where Krark and Sakashima does force you to learn the stack, Rogsai takes it to a whole other level. Timna and Krom as well, because you have to know what's in your deck. You have to know what your game plan is, because as you add colors, you're tightening up your lines. You are bringing them together much more tightly and much more closely because you have more colors. Your card pool is expanding, so you only have so much room for what it is that the deck is trying to do. Yep. So you have to be very, very mindful of that. So that's why we're talking about this in terms of you, the players, are evolving in what you're doing and evolving in how you are bringing that game plan. Because with Krark and Sakashima, you are just looking for a mana source. That's very generic, right? You're looking for a card draw. If you don't have card draw, there's several options there. But when you get into Rogsai, you have to be looking for this particular creature like Valley Floodcaller, or this particular draw card, which also happens to be a way to give everything flash, Born Upon a Wind. So you have to know a little bit more about how you want to move through the deck. You have to be a lot tighter with your decision making. So it kind of forces you to pay more attention to what it is that you're doing. You also, by the way, in case anybody is ever participating in a tournament, you have to remember you cannot reference your deck list in most major tournaments. You can't. So that means you have to know it like the back of your hand.
Yep.
So one of our later videos, we're going to talk about that and how you can work on that and progress on that. But for this one, just letting you guys know, you have to learn and know your play patterns. You have to know what you're going to be able to do. Temur and Rogside just challenge you to pay a lot more attention to your gameplays.
Oh yeah, and I mean, Rockside, you could, when you think about it, you still can turn one win. You still can at least turn one mega opponents.
Yeah, it's very hard, but it is possible. Absolutely.
Yep. Turn one ad nos. You can do it. It's very, very much possible. But like Dirk just said, it's hard.
It's tricky.
But it's just one of those things you just get used to and really like try to like get really some luck in order to go and pull that off. But lastly, what we want to go over. Now, this isn't really an upgrade from Malcolm Francisco, as when we were discussing before recording this gameplay, Malcolm Francisco, the best upgrade would also be a Traxa Grand Unifier, and I do not want to repeat. So, my next upgrade will be in a scenario where, let's say, you love Malcolm, but you don't really like running black. And I do know a few people who refuses to play a certain color just because how strong it is. And I already mentioned black is the strongest color in cEDH, hands down. So let's say you're in that mindset where you like Malcolm. You like how it plays, but you want to go somewhere else besides black. Best combination for that would most likely be Temur. So be Malcolm with Tana, which I did end up winning in the previous gameplay. Link is right here. What this basically does is Tana, you really just need it for the colors. You don't need to cast Tana unless you're like desperate. It's almost like Rockside. Rockside, you mainly are casting Rock, never Silas, unless you're that desperate.
Yeah, we're talking. You made it to turn 5 or 6, and nobody's done anything, or nobody's doing anything because everyone's already blown out their win attempts. Then maybe you're casting Silas.
If you have nothing else, So Tana is just there for the red and green, that availability. You'll still need to cast and be able to abuse Malcolm's ability of getting treasures, right? And so here's where the green and red comes in. So the green will come in to be able to have a whole bunch of creature tutors. And the reason why creature tutors are very important in this deck is you want to grab a creature called Glinthorn Buccaneer. Glinthorn Buccaneer and Malcolm are a 2-piece infinite combo alone, as long as you have a colorless and red to activate Glinthorn on that turn. Because if you try casting it and you try passing a turn, everyone in that pod is going to do what they can to get rid of Glinthorn Buccaneer, knowing what is at stake if they let it go to your turn again.
Nobody wants Glinthorn to stay around for too long.
Oh, yeah. So, and the really nice thing is Glinthorn Buccaneer does have haste. So let's start with that. So what you do is you have Malcolm that is able to swing, or you give it haste in some way, like a lightning greaves. Glinthorn Buccaneer, you swing with both, and then on combat or on attacks, you pay the red and colors because Glinthorn Buccaneer, you're able to activate it as long as it's attacking. So when you do that, you discard a card, you draw a card, you deal 1 damage to everyone in the pod except for yourself, of course. From there, Malcolm will trigger because Malcolm triggers on damage, not combat damage. That's the key.
Very important to note.
Yep. So you just generated 3 treasures right there. And guess what? Use the 2 to activate Glinthorn again. Get 3 more. Use 2. Boom, boom, boom. So you just basically
keep it going.
Yeah, you generate infinite treasures at that point. I wouldn't say complicated, or I would say like more toward the middle as far as win costs go, because if people see you running Temur with Malcolm, they are going to be expecting Glinthorn Buccaneer. So otherwise, so let's say they do counter the Glenhorn because they're just like, oh, we expected that. Force of Will. Like I kept this Force of Will in hand because I expected a Glenhorn. No. All right, cool. Well, I still have Dualcaster and Twin Flame. Oh,
Right, that's kind of the beauty part of some of the adding additional colors, is because you open up your lines to other combos, right?
Yep.
So that's something to absolutely be considerate of, is the more colors you add, the more combo possibilities that you run into. And so that's why when you get into the higher color count, you're going to start to see more and differing or varying combo types in that mix, because of the fact that you are, again, widening your card pool, giving yourself more options.
Yep.
So,
and I think, so what I normally do as far as win cons with my decks personally is I like to add more than one win con. This is why you'll never see me play stuff like Godo, because Godo, there's only really just one line, and that's it. You can decide to add the Dualcaster line, but I mean, why would you when you're playing Godo? So the other way that I actually added into the deck, just in case, this isn't something I search for, mind you. This is something that I say I must have in my hand, in my opening hand. But I did include Kennen, Thrasios, and Basalt Monolith. That is another potential line to be able to draw into something. Now, I would not recommend doing the Glenmore line when you're doing that, because we're basically, what you're aiming for is drawing at least half your deck or majority of your deck. So that way you also have the interaction in your hand. Glenhorn can draw you out. Unless, of course, you got endurance, and you'll be fine. So if you were to run that combo, here's my favorite one con, Walking Ballista.
Walking Ballista.
Yeah, just keep drawing. With Thrasios, you can just keep drawing until you get a creature tutor. And then from there, you cast a creature tutor. And at that point, you should have some interaction in hand. But we've seen some gameplays, like our infamous Nadu Battle Royal, where I felt bad for the dude, where he had the Ristic Study and just did not draw any interaction. Like, that was that. I felt pity. Like, I paid
our very short gameplay, when we tried doing Golgari and got completely blown out by Kuz and Atali on turn 2.
Yep, it was our turn 2, his turn. Like, see, he was start, so his turn 3.
Yeah, so it was his turn 3. Right.
Yep. That right there was just insane. Cool, but that's all we wanted to go over. What other upgrades you would personally do with the decks we mentioned, or any deck for that matter? Drop it in the comment section. And if you didn't like the video, like I said, make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, comment, follow us on Twitter X, and join us on Discord, free for all, so you can join us in future gameplays. All right, if it's your birthday, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
See ya.
Bye.